everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Three Dads and a Console. Not every dad can stay up to date on the latest and greatest in video game news that you need to know about, so we're here to do it for you. Again, this show is kid-friendly, so no earmuffs are needed. Now on with the show! I am Wabba Plays. Alongside today is the one and only Pez. Hello, Pez.
Good day. How's it going? What's the crap?
It's good. I got a little tripped up because I was doing my Three Dads and a Console thing, and there's only two dads.
There's only two
And
of us.
no console.
No. Well, I'm
Court is on
surrounded.
vacation. You believe it?
I'm surrounded by consoles.
You don't even play half of them. You just play Minesweeper on your Dell notebook.
But what? We go into a little minesweeper. Okay, we sweep all the mines, and then we get into solitaire, and then we call it a day. That is gaming, my friends. That is what we call gaming.
And
That
the
is
Microsoft pinball game that was like super cool.
Yep, it was great. Done and done.
We only talk about the classics here.
That's right.
But today, Court's on vacation this week playing Minesweeper.
Fun spot only games. That's what we're playing.
Dude, we need to do a Fun Spot live. I can't wait to go back.
That place bangs.
Oh God, I want. So maybe we'll do a Three Dads and a Console at Fun Spot because I need the Laconia. So today's going to be we're going to pretty much be talking about one game, and the reason why is because NHL 23 details are live. So we're actually recording on Thursday because we can't talk about it before then. So NHL 23, there was a trailer that dropped today, and I was fortunate enough to get a sneak peek that I can now discuss. So we were able to, I was at a presentation where Rammer was there. Two other of the developers were there, Mike Engelhardt, and who's a creative director, and Chris Halleck, who's the lead producer. And it was a virtual presentation and a virtual Q&A. So we're going to go through a lot of the new NHL things to expect, at least what we know at this time. We were really kind of like, we all met because we love hockey. And I know we talk about NHL a lot. If NHL isn't your thing, it's still a good thing to listen to because this is really kind of like a behind the scenes thing. I only really get access to things like this like once a year. So it's pretty cool to see kind of, what you learn before you know. So again, if you don't play NHL, I still think you're going to find this interesting. Pez, what do we do before we get started? Is that?
What do you mean?
I don't know. I'm going to be talking a lot. I want to see. Any wise words before I start rattling some things off?
Yeah, I do have a few wise words. Head on over to youtube.com/3dadsandaconsole and check out the two reviews that Wabba and I dropped. The first is Wabba's review of Curse to Golf, and the second is my review of Cult of the Lamb. So if you haven't checked it out yet, go do that because they are very good. I might be a little biased, but I enjoyed both immensely.
And there's actually more on the way. So I know you got a few more movies that you're going to be sharing.
I am planning on reviewing super small indie game, and this is not a joke. I'm not going to say Madden 23. Super small indie game called Video Game Fables. It is made by one person. I cannot pronounce the name of the studio. It's Momiji Studios. I believe I pronounced that incorrectly, but that's what we're going with. Secondly is a game called Endling, Extinction is Forever, and that's made by Handy Games. So I got a code for that from Keymailer, so thank you for that. And then I will be reviewing not an indie title, Madden 23.
Small indie game. We'll talk about that game for sure. A little more. I know Court got into the demo a little bit, but we've since got access, so look forward to that. All right, so yeah, stay tuned to the YouTube. Thanks for bringing that up. Let's talk NHL 23. So again, I was part of a preview event. So there was some dev Q&A, but I just want to give everybody some quick notes. The first big thing is the cover athlete, or should I say athletes? Trevor Ziegers and Sarah Nurse are both the cover athletes. So the big question was, why both of them? Because for the first time, you are going to be having women play a big part, specifically the IIHF. In an NHL or an EA game, for that matter. And then you have Trevor Ziegers, who's like kind of new. Like he's not like your Austin Matthews, your Ovechkins, or anything like that. And they basically said that they wanted people who were like the future of the game. Ziegers is definitely very skill based. He's exciting to watch. And they both encompass a more expressive and inclusive future of the sport. So that was like the big reason why they selected both of them. The IIHF women's national team is going to be integrated in HUT. We're going to talk about a little bit more about the women's integration, but that's really, really cool stuff coming up. For the first time ever, there is going to be cross-play. But it's going to be a little different than what you might expect. It's cross-play for the same gen. So they showed us this grid. Basically, PS4 and what's the old Xbox?
Xbox One.
Xbox One, they can play against each other. You can only play with people of the same console. So if you want to be on the same World of Shell team, you can only play, if you're PS4, you can only play PS4. But you can play against everybody. So that's going to make it a little different when it comes to who's going to be on your team, because but you have access to more people than before, and you'll be able to play against everybody. Now, PS4 cannot play against PS5. They don't want prior gen playing with next gen. But again, the same rules apply. PS5 can play against Xbox, and this is all in World of Shell and HUT. We don't know anything about Versus or anything else like that yet. So I'm really excited. I don't know what implications that has for HUT. I imagine because you can play against people. I imagine the auction house where you get players is going to be integrated, but we don't know. But that wasn't shared yet. But it's definitely super exciting. There are a lot new enhancements. The one thing I really loved is called Last Chance Puck Movement. So it's a new set of desperation animations and move. So when you get bumped or something, what would happen is you just lose the puck and then you're done. But now you can execute like a pass or a shot. So as you're getting like falling to the earth, you can actually shoot it and it'll happen. Now it might not be the most accurate, but you can still make some sweet plays, or a pass, and it's much more realistic. It's called like stumble and loose puck. You can also do this on loose puck too. So it's going to make it feel a little more fluid, a little more realistic, instead of just being like, well, I got bumped, tough break 2022. Goalies, we say this every year, they're going to improve the goalies, but they added 350 new save animations and 50 human desperation saves. So fingers crossed. They updated X Factors. That was a big thing. It gives really good players certain abilities. AI is going to utilize them more. So Ovechkin, who just sits in the slot and just scores goals, he has one timer or 1T. The AI is going to feed him more. But also they updated other ones. For the biggest one, truculence. Basically, what it would do is just make you like impossible to like hit off the puck. Now it's AI players go more aggressively for hits. I don't know if that's going to change if you're a player, but like they looked into seeing some of the OPX factors. It's a huge complaint from people in World of Shell that the meta is stale. But we'll see what it is. I mean, I know what 4, 5 of them are. If you want to see those ones in depth, go watch my YouTube. It's just whatever. But new X Factors, there's some that are actually around skilled up, which is more easily to do lacrosse moves. So Trevor Ziegers, who's on the cover, did a lacrosse move where he gets a puck in back of the net, curls it up on a stick, and basically like dumps it himself. If you haven't seen it, go look it up. It's fantastic. So there's going to be an X Factor for that. And he had a goal. If you don't watch hockey, you don't know what I mean, but look it up. Like, it's a Ziegers goal where he got the puck behind the net, flipped it to the front, and then what's his name? Sonny Milano hit it in like a baseball bat in front. And the look on Ziegers' face was like, how did we do that? That's in the game. So that's kind of cool. Ziegers has a big impact. They updated power play strategies so you can actually like make it look how you want. All right, that's it for gameplay. So, fine. That's not it, but that's all we were shared. Franchise mode is going to be more customizable, so you can actually change like how much like wins are worth, how much, how you want the playoffs to look like. Do you want a wild card playing game? And it works with custom rosters from NHL 22. So if you put a cool, roster together, you don't have to replicate it. You can just bring it over and work on it. So that's really nice. HUT, this is the biggest thing, and we kind of talked about this last week. Court and Pez both said the show does really well because you play and you get immediate rewards. And it looks like HUT is going to be talking about that, or it's going to be implementing that a little bit. And we don't have the full picture now, but this was just like a preview. But they are going to have a rotating schedule of play styles for the HUT Rivals playlist. So it's not just going to be you play these games all week, you play these games on the weekend, and you rinse and repeat like it was this year. You're going to get immediate rewards to add variety and reduce lag time. So there's going to be 10 rotating styles, and you're going to get immediate rewards granted through win-based objectives. That's what they said. Take that for what it's worth. I don't know yet, but basically they want both long and short-term goals or short-term rewards, long being 1 week and short being immediate. So the crowd is going to be enhanced. So this I actually really like. The crowd's going to react more to like what happens. So like based on the score of the game, what's happening on the ice. So like the examples we saw was like a power play, and like this dude was just like wailing from the point, and he just kept hitting like the same guy over and over. And each time the crowd's like, oh, 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 it was so cool. It felt like a real game. And then the other one, which is not a realistic scenario, Buffalo was up by 10 goals.
Oof.
We all know that's not going to happen.
No.
But at the end of the game, the crowd was all standing up and, you know, counting down 10, 9, 8. It was just in anticipation. And also too, when someone goes on a rush or a breakaway, the crowd's going to like get loud and get hype. And also boo refs and away players and boo when the team does poorly. So like, it's going to be more reactive and feel like you're playing in a game instead of like this static stadium.
I love that. That immersion is going to be incredibly important for this title.
I feel like a lot of people are going to overlook that or take it for granted, but that was probably the most exciting part that I saw. Crossplay, but then this. But then they improved the hat trick sequence. They said they improved the cup sequence. And they improved the lighting, ice wear. They also added wear to the bottom of the boards. Again, these things seem not like a big deal, but it's going to all add up. But those were like the big hits. From like, here are the big changes that we want to share with you. That doesn't mean that's all of them.
Okay, let's start. Let's now talk through all of these because I think they're important. First is the cover. GG's on the cover. Honestly, I've seen it. It looks good.
It leaked, by the way. I didn't. No one. Yeah, it leaked before then too.
Yeah,
like
it was leaked. So
not by me.
We saw it early, and you know what? It looks pretty good. I like it. I dig it. People on Twitter, because the gaming cesspool is on Twitter.
True.
They immediately were like, why Trevor Ziegers? He only had, 23 goals in his rookie season, blah, blah, blah. It's like, you know what? Or second season, sorry. Trevor Ziegers may have only had 61 points, which honestly isn't anything to sneeze at for a Ducks team that wasn't that good.
Yep.
But it's important to make new stars in the league. Okay. So the way you do that is by having people like Trevor Ziegers, or a couple of years ago, what was it? NHL 20 was Austin Matthews. Like, you have Austin Matthews, right? In his rookie year or his second year, all of a sudden on the cover. You got, I believe Connor McDavid was on the cover once. You get Connor McDavid on the cover. Like, this is how you make stars in the NHL, because video games are important when it comes to sports games. There was a reason Madden 22 had Patrick Mahomes and Tom Brady on the cover, right? Because it's like you got your Hall of Fame, best of all time, not as good as Josh Allen, but people like to think he is, and then Patrick Mahomes, right? So I think it's important, that you have a young guy like Ziegers on the cover. Better, you know what? You don't need Ovechkin. You don't need Matthews. You don't need McDavid. People know who these guys are. You want the next class, so to speak. And then to have, to follow that up with, what was her name? Sarah Nurse?
Sarah Nurse.
So then to follow that up with Sarah Nurse, who plays for Team Canada, is also a big deal because, and we haven't even mentioned this yet, but women are being added into HUT. And I think that is a huge deal. There's going to be we'll talk about it more when we mention it, but there's going to be bros on Twitter that's like, oh, I don't want women in HUT because that's what they do, right? That's what they do, is they complain about that. You already see it with NBA 2K series. They're like, oh, the WNBA, no one's going to play that, blah, 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 blah. No one cares. Someone will play it and they'll enjoy it and they'll like it. But it's incredibly important, because women's hockey, there are women's hockey leagues that have started and folded because there's no pub behind them. But also because women's hockey, ladies and gentlemen, this might shock you, but it shouldn't. Women's Olympic hockey is excellent. It's
Yes.
excellent. The U.S. and Canada women's games are some of the Olympic games are some of the best hockey you will ever watch. Don't have to believe me. Don't care. Go check out the gold medal games. They will blow your mind. Absolutely blow your mind. So I love it. I love it. And it's a good cover. It's not over stylized. It gets that like, Anaheim feel to it with the palm trees in the back and all that stuff. I dig it and I like it and I'm glad they went this route other than your usual suspects, right?
I do want to go more to the women being added to Hut because so they had Ziegers come on and talk a little bit about like why he's excited. He said he was uh, he said I'm pumped to see or like pumped to see people try all my moves because like they put them
Mm-hmm.
all in the game. And then Sarah Nurse said women's hockey's here to stay. And I think that's a cool quote. And so from like if you like you're opening this game up to like a lot of female fans. When they added it last year, it was like cool, but like it was in its own playlist.
Yeah.
And like I didn't really play it because like I don't spend a lot of time with offline modes.
No.
Like I don't watch as much, actually I got probably more into it this year than I did any other year. And now that it's going to be in Hut, like I'm going to have a lot more familiarity, not with just the big names, but like with like probably a lot more. I mean, I learned more about like the European players, miss you Krejci, think you're back. But like just because of Hut. And now it's going to just showcase these players to other people who might not really, watch women's hockey, or maybe people who really do, and now they get to see their favorite players.
Mm-hmm.
And it's cool because Sarah Nurse, so her brother plays, was it Edmonton?
Her cousin. He
What's her
plays.
cousin?
Yeah. Darnell Nurse plays for Edmonton.
And it's nice because it's like she's talented on her own. Like it doesn't have anything to do with like her. I think her name definitely has some added weight to it because of that. But it's a good but she's a great player in her own right. So I think she's a really good choice for being on the cover.
I mean, in the 2001 2002 I think Olympics, she had 18 points. Oh, this is World Junior. She had 18 points in 7 games. She can
It's
play.
nuts.
She can play. She can play. And you know what? People deserve to see women like her, Hillary Knight, Amanda Kessel. Like they need to see them play because what you watch in an NHL game isn't always how hockey's played. If you go watch it overseas, some leagues have zero hitting, right? Bigger rinks, zero hitting allows for more of that flow style to go through. So the NHL game isn't the only game in town. That's what we think as a Northern American centric league. But you have the women's leagues that are just as good and they're a good watch. Like I've taken my daughter to some Boston Pride games and they're a lot of fun. And the hockey's
Hopefully they'll
good.
be able to add it later, but I know right now they're just doing the international, which is good because again, people play NHL from all over the world.
Of course.
So they actually showed us 4 cards. So I'm gonna mispronounce her name. She's from Finland, Jenny Herakowski. She was shown as a 93 overall left defend 2-way forward or 2-way defender. And the thing is, like, you might think like, okay, well, how are these cards going to stack up against some of the ones that we've already seen? They should stack up. I think it's based on overall driven. You have Amanda Kessel. She was an 85 overall right wing playmaker. And then you had 2 X Factor cards. So X Factor are ones that you can upgrade using like collectibles or coins or whatever. And you're actually going to get one of these if you pre-order any edition. So standard or the I forget what it's called, but the more expensive edition, the X Factor edition. I should know that. So the 2 we saw was Marie-Philippe Poulin. They showed her at a 94.
She's a goalie, right? For
I'm not sure.
Team Canada.
I'll have to check.
I'll look it up. Keep going.
Okay. And then Sarah Nurse. Obviously one. She got one. She was an 85 power forward. So like these cards are gonna make your team. And so there's confirmed base cards, there's confirmed X factors. They are gonna be involved in events. And the best part about this, I think, if you're like an existing player, is it's gonna add more variety. So everybody's team starts to look the same. Everyone gets McDavid, they add, Ovechkin or whatever. Like now you're gonna add in a whole different league, and they're gonna it's gonna just change the meta. Now you're gonna start to find players who are like better as people start to familiarize, or as some of these players from the IHF start to emerge and crush it. Not that they don't already, but like for Hut, it's going to be like we don't. I personally like I don't know I don't know who the McDavid of the IIHF is yet.
Mhm.
Um, but it's going to add more variety to teams based on who you get too,
I was wrong,
because
by the way.
nothing's.
She's a
Oh,
forward, and she's the captain of the Canadian national team.
Canada.
I thought she was the goalie. I was incorrect.
That's fine. But yeah, I mean that goes to show that's why it's good because now it's like we don't. I don't watch a lot of national women's hockey outside the Olympics, so it's going to be really good to meet these players. And yeah,
But
it's going to change the meta, and I think in a good way.
and I think that is important because the things that we have talked about, like you said, is once May rolls around, no, not even May. Once March rolls around, you're playing the same lineups, right?
Yes.
Your first and second line, if you have all the cards, are always the same. McDavid, Gretzky on a wing, Lemieux as your second line center, Austin Matthews on a wing, and then your third and fourth lines usually vary, but those guys aren't getting a lot of time. This will change that, or this should change that.
Should.
It'll be interesting to see how they implement the ladies in the game and how things like strength are now implemented to push them off the puck. Because if they're easily removed off the puck, no one's going to use them.
I imagine that would not be the case. So the overalls they showed from face value cards, I started to write them down, but like the Amanda Kessel, who is an 85, and the and Hirakowski, they had the same one, so I think they're just placeholders. But I imagine that they would want to make these for example, like Johnny Gaudreau, like good skill player, but he just gets demolished.
Yeah.
So he's no longer in the meta. But I believe that they want to. I would imagine that they'd want to have these cards be used, be part of that. But I think that's also why they changed some of the X factors too.
Yeah, and when I say when I talk about the meta, I'm well aware, and this happens in all sports games, that initially, like in Madden, right now, Madden launched on Friday. They only released up to 88s in MUT, and then they do a slow drip. So eventually, like the 88 Josh Allen, which I think is like one of the best cards right now, isn't going to be usable. And the same thing happens in the show, and the same thing happens in NHL. So my expectation isn't I'm going to use 85 Amanda Kessel until April. Like eventually she'll fall off and better cards will come in. That's just how
Mhm.
it happens. But uh, you know, to hopefully at some point it is varied, and those base cards will get their specialty. I don't know, Amanda Kessel gold medal edition card where she gets like a 94 or whatever. Uh, but yeah, the hope is on my end as a user is to see more variance in the lineups, because after a while seeing the same lineups is incredibly boring.
Yeah. So the only thing I'm worried about, and I know you mentioned before, there's just ignorant people. And you saw it last year because so EA, I know EA gets a lot of hate, but one thing I think that they did really well was showcase a lot of. So they have a lot of DE&I objectives, and they actually highlighted that during the presentation. It's diversity, equity, and inclusion. So they had Luke Prokop, who's a homosexual, like openly player. They had Ethan Bear, who's part of First Nations, and they gave people like a card for that. And I thought it was really cool. And they had a story, like a QR code, but you have people who are just stupid. So if you have a stupid opinion about women being in HUD, keep it to yourself. Be open minded. You know what I mean? It's just one of those things. Like I can see that happening, and that's the downside. And hopefully there are more, loud supportive voices than uh loud dissenting ones. But that's
And
my only concern, and it has nothing to do with the like. It's not like I wouldn't want this to be a good like the change,
yeah,
but I just feel like people are just gonna be dumb.
oh, 100%. Look, and I know Court would advocate for this growing up in the hockey scene. I've been around the hockey scene for a long time. Uh, that's what hockey bros do. If it's not a overly machismo, almost misogynistic type of attitude, then that's not what the hockey boys do. You know what I mean, Ferda? Like they just We'll talk about, women's hockey sucks. Women don't belong in hut. Uh, all that stuff. They, when NHL teams do their pride game or whatever, people have comments about that. People had comments about the free cards that were given out when it came to the Pride Day and the First Nation and all that stuff. Free cards that you didn't even have to use, and people complained about them just because what they stood for. So, unfortunately, we will see probably a lot of that, but knowing the NHL streaming community, there may be more people who are on the, I'm going to call it the right side of it. You don't have to agree with me, listener, that I think that women in hut is a good thing, but I'm going to say on the right side of that, because other than that, you're just excluding them for no reason. If they're viable cards and you're like, well, they shouldn't be in here, this is an NHL game, not an equality game, well, then you're missing the point. Yeah. Because the NHL has openly gay players now, right? The NHL, if you want to take it that level, how come folks aren't like, oh, this should be, this game is in Canada, why isn't this, a race, like certain race only, right? You can make those arguments, but you shouldn't, because it's stupid.
What is it? I know that I know Kadri openly shared a lot of the vitriol he got just for being him.
Yeah.
And look at him now; he's a Stanley Cup champion, and he was a free agent of the offseason.
And we're not even we're not even talking about his play. We're talking about the color of his skin.
Yeah, his background. So it's for everyone. And I know EA, again, people give him a lot of hate, but I think they do this right, and I think they do it right specifically in NHL. And it's nice to see that. So that they're taking a stand. And again, if you don't agree with that, that's fine. You don't have to share your opinion. Because guess what? There's going to be a lot of people who are going to enjoy this. And I can tell you right now, Court's daughter's going to love this. And
100%.
That's imagine that. Now you're going to have all these kids who actually get to play a mode that is, it's not just again, I think maybe that was but it's not just a small playlist. Right. This is the biggest mode of the game. So
imagine Court's daughter, and I'm only going to bring up Court's daughter because she had her own Boston Pride cutout.
Yes.
Okay. So imagine now she is playing NHL 23, and she is using, I don't know, I'm going to say, let's say just for poops and giggles, she uses Samantha Davis, who plays on the Boston Pride, right? So all of a sudden now she's playing a player on a team that she had a cutout for. That's a big deal.
Yeah.
And that's how you create from a business wise, that's how you create a sustainable user base that is going to keep buying your game going forward.
Or God forbid that people keep playing past February.
Yeah.
At minimum. So
and you know what? Let's segue right into crossplay, because I think the issues with NHL 22 was you took a user base and you cut it into 4 squares, and that was it. There was no movement in between those 4 squares. There was no market in between those 4 squares. It was, if you're PS5, you're playing PS5. If you're Xbox One or Xbox Series X, that's who you're playing, and that's it. Truthfully, I'm going to be the buzzkill and say they need to stop last gen games. If eventually it just needs to stop. Because while this generation versus generation thing works this year, as more consoles become readily available, that previous gen is going to drop off, and then you don't have to spend your resource time trying to figure out what the heck is wrong with the previous gen.
But I feel like there are 2 types of games that latch onto previous gen, and this is I'm talking PS2 even. Sports games and Call of Duty online.
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
Not for PS2, but I know PS3. It's literally the last ones.
How dare you exclude Just Dance? That literally put out a Wii game 2 years ago.
I was gonna say, can I get Just Dance 2022 on Wii U or Wii?
You know what? Let's look. Just Dance Wii.
Ubisoft doing that. Well, because they don't change the graphics. Xbox.
The last Just Dance was for Wii, I think was 2020.
Oh,
Yeah.
yikes. So, okay,
Yep.
fine. And Just Dance. I stand corrected.
How dare you?
I
But
know we have a lot of Just Dance fans here.
But anyway, I think the crossplay is going to help, right? Because your Xbox and your PS5s, your Series X's and your PS5s are playing together because they're playing the same game. I get why you couldn't do PS5 versus PS4 because I'm sure there will be differences that will make it harder gameplay wise to recreate.
I
I'm
think
sure.
also, well, it's visual fidelity is like the difference, but also too, think about it from like an account perspective. So one of the bonuses you get with the X Factor edition is dual entitlement. And you see this a lot with
Mm,
PlayStation, you see a lot with Xbox is you get the game on both old and new for whatever reason. How do you have to split it up? So last year PS4 you could play on it, but then once you move to X or to next gen, that's it. Now
yeah,
you can still play the offline modes. But like how would it work? It just doesn't make sense. Like because you could technically have you on one console playing with you on another console.
right,
You can't like do that.
right.
So I understand why they have to split it up from old to new. But one of their future priorities they shared is that they want to have you be able to create and join mixed console clubs. Since at launch right now you're only going to be able to be on the same console, but you can play against any console.
Yeah,
So what they want to do is have like Xbox Series be with X or PlayStation 5 and also have mixed club matchmaking too. I think match like that stuff I think is way harder than we think it is. Just because Fortnite did it,
100%.
like, but again, Fortnite has Fortnite money, but I think it's definitely way more challenging. The fact that this crossplay, I would say, is probably the biggest priority that we're going to see this year, at least in terms of like the biggest change. And you might be like, "Oh, that doesn't have anything to do with the game." It does.
But
It has to do with
exactly.
the back end that none of you see, that myself and none of you nerds know how to do anything on. Like,
Exactly. And
it's such
I
a tough thing to tackle, I bet.
and kudos to them for doing it because that is what the player base was begging for. Begging for even before NHL 22 came out, they were like, "We want crossplay." Uh and EA delivered it to them. Will it work? In theory, it works, right? We don't know. If the game is what it was last year, maybe it doesn't work. Who knows, right? And then that speaks to a bigger problem of the product. But right now, they said, okay, we heard you. We heard that you want crossplay. We're going to give it to you. And it makes sense that it would stay within generation. My what I wonder, is if they will, if that means that they've also added a cross market.
Mm.
And I don't know if we know that yet because they haven't really done their hut deep dive. Um, but a cross market, so a Series X and PS5 market, I think is incredibly important um, for the longevity of not really the game, but the actual market itself. Because having to do, if you're like a UG Dynasty, youtube.com/UG Dynasty, and you're doing your every Monday Market Monday. If you're not able to do all four markets, that's a huge piece of the puzzle that you're not being that's a huge piece of the pie you're not serving. Okay. So I love food. I love food analogies. They're so good.
Yeah.
But now, so he plays on his PS5. Now he can at least keep the current gen happy by doing his Market Mondays. And what he is saying for week one is relevant for week one current gen players, and that's important.
And it was definitely tough. Like, I couldn't find players I wanted. Like, they just didn't exist on the console. No one had them, but someone had them on Xbox. It will make the prices less. I don't know. I think it'll make it a little more realistic, and I don't know. It just makes sense. So I'm really hoping. I can't imagine I would play against somebody in Rivals but not be able to trade with them. So we'll see about that. And from a competitive perspective too, instead of having to slice it up, you just it's all the same.
Yep.
So you just like even for what Sports Gamer does, they do the ESL tournaments. You just build your team on one console and everybody plays. There's no Xbox tournament, there's no PlayStation tournament. And what that should do is make the prizes much better because now instead of having to split it 4 ways, do they even do a prior gen GWC? Who knows?
Who knows?
We'll see.
But I'm happy for you as someone who plays it competitively. Your player base has now doubled. No, you can quote unquote competitively, but I'm gonna say competitively because you play it on twitch.tv/wabaplays at least three times a week. Usually during the season, we're looking at 4 times a week.
Dude, I'm taking off time. So I'm gonna take off a few days the week before it launches, and I'm taking the whole week off. I'm not gonna play it the whole time, but
yeah, you are, and you'll stream it the whole time. I'm gonna bully you into it. So it happens.
Thank you. Yeah, you have to do it. There's also a cool part of this, and like this is like again, I know I'm like talking about this, like well, obviously that's what we're talking about today. Like I through the creator network, I'm very thankful to be a part of things like this because for a creator my size and just like being involved in with the past few years, it's been really interesting to be able to be in something live with people who create a game that I love. I've only ever done it for NHL, and I was able to do it for Lost in Random, and they give you the opportunity to ask questions. Now, none of mine were picked this time. I'll tell you the 2 questions are. Shout out Marcus. I said, have there been any accessibility changes since last year, aside from just addressing color blindness? And I also asked, are we going to be able to update our arena and hut? Those weren't picked because they were too hard hitting. I bet. There's so many questions, but a few that I did pick out. Were someone asked after a year of Frostbite, what did you learn for NHL 23? So Frostbite's the engine that's on NHL, I think was the last to get it. And they said it was really more an immersion, the presentation package, crowd, and they said cup celebration. They also said that hat tricks will be, way different. It'll be more, celebrated, but it sounds like right now you're going to get a lot more polish. And I think that's going to rub some people the wrong way because they want to see oh, I want it to be more realistic gameplay wise, but I don't know. I think they definitely prioritized a lot of different things this year. This was a good one. Will there be rule changes with the women's hockey IIHF being added? They said the mixed gender teams will not have any change to the rule set, so they're going to basically go by NHL rules. Like in modes like Hut.
Does that include fighting?
Someone brought that up, and I think they didn't give us a for sure answer, but I think that they said that there might be reduced, if not, because someone had a question about line brawls, which I thought was not a good question.
It's such an NHL hockey boy thing.
I was just like, when they're like, what about line brawls? Is that going to be in the game? Like, dude, because I know my 2 questions and I'm a little biased, but I'm like, I feel like that's whatever. But I think that they alluded that there might be less fighting, if not. I wouldn't be surprised if it was taken out because it's not a good look. There's the ability for people to be purposefully toxic. Let me just put it that way. And we all know what that means. Yeah. But I think that because there isn't any fighting in the IHF and now you're having a mixed team, I mean, it doesn't really serve a purpose anymore. And I don't mean I'm not talking about general, I'm talking about in the game. This is just waste time.
If I may be so bold, fighting in the NHL games suck anyway.
You can do the Jimmy Hornbuckle. Is it weird that so I played this game for 7 years. I don't know how fighting works successfully, and I don't know how face-offs work.
Yeah, it's weird you don't know how either of them work. But the fighting mechanic, it gave, if you won your fight, it gave you stamina. However, fighting became a hold L2, so your guy is pulled back away, and then just mash the up and down right stick, and that was it. That was it.
It's not the great mechanic.
It doesn't do what they probably wanted fighting in hockey to do, which is rile your team up and give that emotional boost. But that's not a thing in a coded video game.
Well, it might be now that you have the crowd reaction, if it is something that's still in the game. So we don't know, but I just remember someone asked about line brawls, and they gave an answer about individual fighting with the IHF inclusion. I was like, oh, interesting. Will there be Russian or Belarus teams? They said based on the decisions from the IHF and the ongoing conflict, they won't be in the game. I thought that was interesting.
Was that Russian Belarus? Is that what you said?
Yep, exactly. Okay. Because EA has come out in full support of Ukraine, so they're continuing that, and those aren't going to be in the game. And again, also has to do with the decisions from the IHF. They said for competitive gaming, this was Kinu. Have improvements been made for things like people disconnecting or adding broadcast mode? Love this. They said, we know broadcast mode is a requested item because people want to use it for spectating for tournaments. They said it's not going to be included this year. They're well aware of it. They said regarding disconnecting, they said we want to incentivize people to play and complete games, which will improve integrity. And they've also made AI changes to make things like puck ragging difficult to do. So I thought that was a very good question. Shout out Kino. And a very good answer.
Can I just say something about Kino? I've known
Amazing.
I've known Kino for like 20 years. I met him.
What?
So back in when NHL used to come out on PC. Uh
Wow.
so we're talking NHL like
There are people
2001,
who might
2,
listen to
3.
this that weren't alive then.
Um I hope not. We're a parent-centric podcast. If some 16-year-old is listening to us, then shout out to you, my dude or my dudess. So I was big into the NHL modding community. We had places that was called the big two places were the site called Cyber NHL and Thunderpuck. So that is where you went in, you modded your jerseys, you modded the arena, you made them more real life, made them better looking, all this stuff. And Kinu was part of that. And yeah, and then he randomly dropped into your. I think he raided you because he does the sports gamer thing. He
Oh
raided
yes.
you, and I sent him a message, and I was like, "Are you Kinu from Thunderpuck?" And he was like, "Yeah." And we just got to chatting and like catching up, and it's so weird, and how small the world really is because it's someone I've known for 20 years that I lost contact with, and Twitch brought him right back in.
That's crazy. Yeah, he's been doing this stuff for a while and still crushing it. But yeah, I thought that was a really good target. I mean, he knows what the people want.
He
He's a
does.
man of the people.
He does know what they want. I mean, he runs, he's running what he's running, and that's all they do is tournament style stuff. So I get why people would want a broadcast mode. If you're doing YouTube videos, right, on your franchise, do a broadcast mode would be perfect.
Yeah, to be able to like not just watch it from one angle, but to like move around.
Yeah,
Give us spectator mode. And they're going to eventually. Um,
eventually.
they also said any changes to be a pro? Nope. So neat.
My
Um,
can I
I
just
was
touch on that real quick?
absolutely.
I think single player modes in single player like be a pro, Madden's Face of the Franchise, and the NBA one that I can't remember, just whatever, my player or whatever. I think those modes are slowly on their way out.
I imagine that they can look at the trophy list for how many people. I should have come prepared with that and see how many people like hit a certain trophy. And if it's like 10%, it's like, why are we doing this?
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure they have. I'm sure they can count the number of times people have pressed on to be a pro.
I
You
think I
know,
played it for like 2 hours.
yeah. And EA and 2K and MLB, San Diego Studios, they're not stupid. They know what percentage of their player base is using Be a Pro or Face the Franchise or blah 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 blah. So if EA Vancouver is sitting down and they're like, okay, guys, it is the smallest team out of the big four or five, if you want to count FIFA, right? It's the smallest team out of the five. So if they're sitting down, like, okay, 10% of our player base plays Be a Pro, but 75% of our player base plays Hut, what do you think they're going to pay attention to? And this isn't
Exactly.
even talking revenue, right? Because in revenue, when it comes to sports games, sales decline every year in sports games, but revenue goes up, and that's because of Ultimate Team modes, right? So we're not even talking revenue. If 0 to 10% of your player base is playing Be a Pro, why would you take significant time from a small team to change it? Because if they're not playing it now, they're not going to play it,
Exactly.
and that's
But
okay.
yeah, so I was surprised to hear nothing is changed, but I don't disagree with that decision.
Yeah,
Here's an interesting one. So if you don't know, the Coyotes got kicked out of their arena, Arizona Coyotes, and now they're playing at some
Arizona State
Arizona State College University,
University.
ASU. ASU, and that stadium holds 5,000 people. Now, what does the average NHL stadium hold?
I don't know, but the Bruins holds at max about a little under 18,000. So let's say 18,000.
So it's going to be like a fourth of what an arena has. So someone said, how are you going to handle that? Is it going to be a generic arena? Because they don't have the well, we don't know, but they don't have like the rights. We're assuming to like use it. And they're probably not. And even if they're not going to do it for, one arena. So they said they're going to be using a smaller arena. So it's not just going to be a generic arena. It's going to be like the Arizona arena. It's not going to be called ASU, but it is going to feel different from other NHL arenas. It's not going to be the exact replicated rink in real life, but it's going to be as authentic as they can to be in a smaller venue without using the name or likeness. So thought that was really cool. They don't have to do something like that. I still don't like how arenas are done. I think they're all look the same, but at least this one will look different, and it's going to be expensive and hot. So keep an eye out for that. That's my tip for the day. If you get the Arizona arena, sell it for a lot. And the last one was
Diamond Hands, that bad boy.
We just take it to the moon. And yeah, the last one is just about Hut, how they want to do short and long term awards. So I'm excited to hear more about that. But that's really like the big deep dive. I know we went into some things that were like super intricate, some things that were more like, we went to the women's being in it, we went into the Q&A, we went to crossplay. So yeah, if you're an NHL fan, like this meant a lot. Like you understood a lot of this. If you're not, you probably just you probably understand enough. But it was a really cool event, and yeah, we should be seeing more in the next coming months.
Yeah. I will say kudos, I like to dump on the NHL team, but kudos to the changes they have made. They sound promising. We're not going to know until we get our hands in the hamburger, as I like to say, if it's going to be any good. Oh, I'm sorry. Are we
just
not?
a weird visual of just
You got to get your hands in. You got to get your hands in there and really work it around, right? Hands in the hamburger when it comes to gaming. We don't know if it's going to work or if it's going to be any good, but I'm going to give them props because they have at least heard some of the things that the player base has complained about, and they're doing their best to change it.
Exactly. I mean, I know some years people are like, oh, it's the same game. There are some years where it has felt like, again, I didn't always get like this type of insight, but the fact that they're like, hey, here's some big things. It's like, okay, you did something different. Yeah. Like you added, women in Hut. You added crossplay, which was big. You added a bunch of desperation saves for goalies. You added last chance, like passes and shots, and like loose puck desperation moves. Like this isn't just nothing. So I guess, that's obviously you can ask for a lot, but they have to prioritize themselves. And these are things I'm excited about. I definitely think that some people are going to, I mean, we don't know enough at this point. We only saw a little bit of gameplay, but I don't know. I'm looking forward to it. And release date, it does release on October 13th on all major platforms. I believe that's the date. Unless I wrote it down wrong. But
October 13th is
that's a Thursday, so I think I'm wrong. I think it's October 15th or 14th. Yep.
Probably.
So it's that Friday.
That's all right. It's sometime in the middle of October. Before you and your child dress up for Halloween, you'll be able to play NHL 23 on the console of your choice, unless you only play on Switch or PC. In which case,
sorry. Yeah. Oh yeah. People ask people. Yeah, PC. That's not happening. I don't understand why people want that.
Because not everyone has a PlayStation or Xbox. Waba.
That's weird. October 14th. I wrote it down wrong. October 14th, and you'll be able to play 3 days early if you pre-order. Also, too, if you are interested in this stuff and you want more of a breakdown or like a small snippet, including pre-order bonuses, go to my YouTube channel. A bunch of videos just went live today. Most of it, some of it's going to be a little bit of a repeat, but if you're interested in hearing about it again or kind of more in a different format, it's going to be much smaller videos. Go check that out. And even if you don't care, go check it out anyway, please. But
youtube.com/WabaPlays.
That's right. Thank you. Yeah. But normally I like to do a lot of like preview, as many previews as I can for our podcast. So that's why we want to kind of meet today, give you folks the inside scoop. Because we can talk about it now, and it's exciting. That's why we're recording on Thursdays, because I couldn't really talk about it until then. So,
correct.
That's where we are. Cool. Any final last words, Pez?
No. No, no. Excited to get my hands on the tech test.
That's right. I don't know when that's gonna happen. I don't think they've announced it. I imagine we find, um, I don't know. Maybe I didn't write it down.
That's
I'll
okay.
have to find out about the tech test. But yeah, I actually want to play it because I remember last year it was fun, but it was just once. I guess that
Yeah.
makes sense, but I'm not good at that mode.
Let me
I'm not good at any mode.
let me get after a little water buffalo. Let's go.
Oh,
A
shout out to
silly,
Water Buffalo.
what a silly name.
All right, folks. Well, that's gonna wrap up today's NHL 23 uh, preview on Three Dads and a Console. Again, if you folks had fun, please make sure to follow us. Make sure to subscribe to us on YouTube. We're gonna get back to doing these things live at Wednesday at 7:30 at youtube.com/Three Dads and a Console. But because we're getting involved in fun things like different games with embargo dates, we just want to make sure that not only are we able to adhere to our schedule, but that we're able to follow the right rules. So thank you, folks, for you know
Putting
giving
up
us
with
a
us.
little extra time.
Yeah, thanks for putting up with our stuff.
That's right.
That's all.
So yeah, stay tuned next time. Again, we're gonna be talking. We're not gonna do a full Madden episode like we did on NHL. This is just because this is kind of like our wheelhouse. This is kind of a unique opportunity that was presented.
Yep.
But we're gonna talk Madden. We're gonna be talking some of the games Pez mentioned that he's gonna be getting into, and we're gonna be talking some other big games that some folks have had a chance to take a look at. So that's a big market tease. You're gonna want to stick around. We're definitely seeing some things. So look forward to it. All right, folks. Thank you again for your time and attention, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Bye.